What's up, everybody? Welcome back. It's Extra Points. I'm Eric Schmoldt. This is John Barry. I want to start off on a serious note here. The powers that be aren't real sure if this show should continue, so I'm just going to hit it straight off the bat and say, hey, email us, sports@gazetteextra.com if you want to see the show continue. Or if you don't, you want to say good riddance to us, that's
See ya.
And I'll forward them on to those powers that be, and we can decide where to go from there. But we have fun doing it.
We do, yeah.
And I would like to see it keep going, but if nobody's watching it, then we can't do it. So let us know what you think. Throughout the fall and winter, we kind of narrow things down to one sport, but in the spring, there's just too much going on.
Too much action.
So what we do here for these 6 to 8 weeks is all the spring really lasts is just kind of go through some of our impressions from the last week. And I think probably the best place to start is Craig's softball. The Cougars entering this week were 9-0 in Big 8. Essentially went through the first half of the season undefeated, although they haven't played Sun Prairie yet. That comes later this week. They're trying to defend that conference championship. And the thing that gets me is they're not dominating every game. They've had certainly some of those performances, but even on the nights where they're maybe not on their A game, they're finding ways to win, and that's what it takes to win a conference championship.
Yeah, latter part of last week was very, I think, meaningful when you look at the conference race because Verona beat Sun Prairie, gave Sun Prairie their first loss in the conference. Craig turned around and swept Verona, so really gave them a nice little cushion, so to speak, when you look at the conference standings because the Cougars sit there undefeated. Verona with 2 losses, Sun Prairie now with a loss. Craig's yet to play Sun Prairie, but I think it's what we expected. Anytime you can, base your roster around the reigning player of the year in the conference like the Cougars do with Jenna Brandt, and then you got Kennedy Cox behind the plate, Helena Helverson at short. Cougars very strong up the middle, and they've got good backup pitching with Peliquin and Humphrey both coming in to pick up some wins as well. So I think the Cougars are about where you and I expect them to be. And again, their future, so to speak, is going to hinge on how they can compete with those Southern Lakes teams once tournament rolls around.
Right. I would say the lineup too. Not always crushing the ball, but there's not a spot in that lineup, I don't think, where you think of an automatic out. And there's not a lot of high school teams where you don't have 1 or 2 of those in the lineup. Julia Humphrey, I think, is having a really good year at the plate. And even when you get down to those 7, 8, 9 spots, you saw Jessica Filter in the 8th spot come up with a huge hit against Verona over the weekend. So there's not like a place where you can wiggle around in that lineup. And now they get Sun Prairie, I think, Friday in a makeup game, and then right away again on Tuesday next week. And so if you win one or both of those games, all of a sudden you're really in the driver's seat here moving forward. So we'll know a lot about where the Cougars stand in the conference a week from today. And then, like you said, it'll be about can they hang with those top teams from the Southern Lakes when the tournament rolls around. And I think having seen them hang with Stevens Point early in the year will give them a little bit of confidence going.
I think you're right. And the funny part about it is last Friday, I guess it was, I saw Elkhorn, which was 1-4 in the Southern Lakes, or 1-4 overall, come in and play an Edgerton team that was 6-1 in softball. And Tony DeWar's got a nice team at Edgerton. He was missing a couple of pieces that day, but Elkhorn came in there and handled him 11-0. And I talked to Coach Remington afterwards, and he said the same thing. He says, with the competition we play, he said, our record's a little bit deceiving because he said we had a lead on Westosha. We were close with Wilmot. He said no one's blown us out, even though we're 1-4. So the Elks, I was impressed with them. They're a nice team, and again, they're one of those teams that they'll fall down a division once the tournament rolls around, and those are the teams you got to look out for. So again, the Southern Lakes, anybody you talk to will tell you it's far and away the best, from top to bottom, the best softball conference in the state, and that's why every year somebody from the Lakes is usually either in the championship game or in the state semifinals, and it probably won't change this year.
Yeah, and you also got to see Evansville with a walk-off home run against Turner. So I mean, we certainly got some great teams around here to watch, and they're making for some really fun games.
Yep, they are, and that's what it's about. I mean, and it's this time of the year where finally, hopefully, knock on wood, the weather's finally going to cooperate, and we'll get some good weather. Because I watched Evansville and Turner last week, and I thought for sure it was going to start snowing. I mean, it was bitterly cold, and Turner had a lead, and Kelsey Kishore, who'd already homered once, got up in the 7th inning with 2 outs, and wasn't sure they were going to pitch to her. and they decided to pitch to her, and she hit a 1-2 pitch well over the center field fence for a big win for the Blue Devils. They'd never had beaten Turner. Well, they'd probably beaten them, but not
recently.
Not recently hadn't beaten them. So they took a picture behind the scoreboard, in front of the scoreboard, and pretty cool stuff. And like I say, Turner, Reagan Peters, the coach, said that, hey, we'll learn from this. We'll build off of this, and it's a lesson learned for kind of, I would say, giving a game away that they had a lead with 2 outs in the last inning.
Sticking on the Diamonds, let's transition to baseball just a little bit. Janesville Craig still rolling, #1 in Division I. I don't know. It wasn't a huge week for them. They got through it undefeated still. To me, the story was more in Division II, where Jefferson got beat twice. Beloit Turner beat them. You saw that game down there, and Turner has now risen back to #1 in the latest rankings this week.
Yeah, and Jefferson, a little bit surprising there, because I saw them against Turner, a game that was like an hour long, it seemed, and Turner had won that. But then to come back and lose to Broadhead, and I had a chance to see Broadhead play the first game of the year against Parker. Thought they had some good athletes. Broadhead Judah, a team that got quite a few of those football players, but didn't think they're at the caliber of Jefferson. But I think Schmidt, Matt, is it right?
Yeah.
Matt Schmidt pitched against Jefferson and obviously threw well and beat him, and a big win for that Cardinal program, because, like I said, they've got some good athletes, and they were a team that Tom Davey, the coach at Palmyra, said be careful of. He said they're gonna surprise some people. So
they turned around. We should mention too, I think, beat Edgerton Monday night. So I mean, the team that maybe wasn't super high on our radar, that it sounds like Davey was pretty spot on.
And then a lot of people probably didn't know this, because I'm not sure we got the results in time, but Turner went up and won the Wausau tournament, or the Waupun or Wausau, I'm not sure, one of those two. They won, I think it was a Waupun tournament, and Jefferson was in that. Catholic Memorial was in that. Catholic Memorial's got a kid that's going, I think, to Virginia to pitch. So a great week for the Trojans, and they kind of cemented themselves as being deserving of that #1 ranking.
Jumped from #4 to #1 back up there, so nice to see that. We saw Parker a couple times. They're still kind of working to find that consistency offensively, and if they, on the days they can do that, they're in the mix and in the hunt. But on the days they don't, they struggle mightily.
Yeah,
so they just got to find some consistency.
Right, and I think right now, early for me, I think one of the strong stories for me is Craig girls soccer.
Yes,
and they're going to be tested this week. I mean, they're going to find out if they're as good as advertised. But they finally gave up a goal last week, and I know they beat Bigfoot 3-1 on Saturday. Coach McCabe wasn't overly impressed with the way his team played. I mean, I think he realized that you can't go through the motions, so to speak, especially now when you get into the heart of the Big 8 schedule. So a big week for the Cougar girls, but boy, impressive that they're 6 games into the season, they've given up 1 goal.
I think, too, there was a night last week where both Janesville girls soccer teams beat teams from Madison, and we just don't see that very often. And
rare.
That bodes very well, especially considering both teams got a lot of young players on them. So exciting for right now, but also exciting kind of looking forward to what we have the rest of this year and years to come.
Yeah, and you and I both get tired of you get a box score from a game and it's 9-0, 10-0 Middleton or something over Craig or Parker. Most cases it was Parker, just because it's a program that's trying to rebuild, and hopefully those days are gone where we don't have to worry about the lopsided scores. And certainly with Craig, they're going to be competitive. And again, Parker taking baby steps, but anytime you can beat a Madison school, that's a step in the right direction.
Craig had also beaten Evansville in non-conference. I see the Blue Devils were ranked 10th this week in their division for girls soccer, and I think Elkhorn and Milton are playing tonight, Tuesday, as we film this. Those are 2 teams that I'm a little bit intrigued about. They've got some young players. Both have young,
Milton,
junior classes that I think are pretty
Carly
strong.
Krebs has got a bad ankle sprain, so I'm not sure if she's back or not. And obviously, going to St. Cloud to play soccer. If she's not playing, that hurts the Redhawks offensively, because she's as gifted a player as we have in the area.
Yeah, this is now, we're kind of getting toward the conference season, so we'll learn a little bit more about these soccer teams. So shout out to the teams that are off to good starts, and we'll see now what happens in conference. And anything else?
No, golf coming up, and track and field certainly. Cougar relays this Friday night, and then much to our disdain, Parker and Craig go up against each other in a dual meet next Tuesday in Beloit, which I don't like that, but that's the way the schedule works out. But, we've seen some good golf in the area. Matt Zimmerman from Parker's played pretty well thus far. I think Craig is coming along
better,
maybe a little quicker than you and I thought they would, and certainly track and field.
Shout out to Badger in golf.
Yeah.
They won their own tournament over in Geneva, and they've played some big tournaments so far, and they've been right in the mix there too. So.
Yep. And again, we talked about it last week a little bit. If you look at the record board track and field, or not the record board, but the rankings board, it's littered with a lot of area kids, especially the sprinters up at Edgerton. Ashlyn Oren and I think she ranks relays and some other things. So looking forward to track season getting into the full swing of it, and a lot of those kids are going to make the trip to La Crosse this year.
Sounds good. We try to hammer through